Representative Wheeler. Welcome, Representative Wheeler, who is in support of the bill.
Thank you very much, Chairman Moffett, members of the House State Federal Relations Committee, friends on the House State Federal Relations Committee. I'm here today in support of Defend the Guard legislation for a number of reasons that Representative Mannion outlined, but as the child of a military family, many people in my family served in the military, and as a student of history, which I know you know as somebody who teaches civics, I am deeply concerned by the United States and its turn over the last 82 years since 1942, as you mentioned, in Bulgaria when we declared war, and Congress's lack of courage around the issue of genuinely debating any of the number of conflicts that we've gone through over those last 82 years. You asked a good question, and before I get into some of my other testimony, I would like to address it about the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution and the War Powers Act that came after that. Those two pieces of legislation, specifically the War Powers Act, being that that's still used, is different than the declaration of war for the reasons that Representative Mannion brought up, but it's also because that only requires congressional leadership to know about the actions being taken by the executive branch. And there have been a number of instances in which congressional leadership doesn't let the broader members in the United States Congress know. And that puts us in a dangerous position where the leadership in Congress has some level of responsibility on these conflicts that should be given to the broader Congress and to the Congress as a whole. Not to mention the fact that it keeps us from debating these topics in an open forum, in a public way for the people of the United States to hear on the House of the floor, on that floor of the United States Senate. We haven't seen that done in a long time. I would bring up the issues around many different veterans here in this legislature who support this legislation, people on this committee who I know have served in our military and our Navy and who support this legislation, and some new members who I haven't met yet, freshmen who are here who have served our nation as well, and we're very thankful for their service. And they brought up last year Representative Potok, who was the sponsor of this legislation last year. He's a Vietnam veteran, and in rewatching his testimony, I was compelled by his comment around Vietnam was a war. Ask any of these veterans who served in Vietnam or Korea or any of these other conflicts. These were wars. And for Congress not to do its duty as outlined in the United States Constitution and debate these issues and declare war before sending our 18, 19, 20-year-old boys out to the jungle, I think is a moral travesty in the United States of America. And it's put us, from a foreign policy perspective, if you were looking at it not from the Defense Department perspective, but from the State Department's perspective, in a really hard position diplomatically. When nations see that we are willing to unilaterally go after sovereign nations for no reason whatsoever, such as Iraq, based off of a lie, then they get worried, and the stability of the world is shaky, because the United States is the most powerful country on the face of the planet, not just because of our military, our technology, our people, our prowess, but because of the land that we have and its position on the world, and our geostrategic position is just unmatched. And when we do something, the world listens. And if we are unilaterally declaring force against countries, sovereign nations, the world is listening. And I think we've seen the effects of that over the last few years with other countries following suit. We gave Congress the power to declare war because the scholars who wrote our Constitution 248 years ago saw over their history, they were very well-educated men, they knew that despots, kings, over the course of history had used conflicts and wars to rally up publics the public who, if they weren't rallied around that conflict, might realize that they were being taxed to the brim or under an authoritarian leader, as the people in the United States of America realized 248 years ago in creating our Constitution. I'm most concerned that we've entered a period in this country where it's Orwell's Forever War, where, as Representative Mannion outlined, we just find a new enemy wherever we can look for one, and the defense contracting agencies continue to make money. The executives, I should say, of those agencies continue to make money, and the congressional members who go into those consulting firms after they're members of Congress serving on the defense and appropriations committees in the United States Congress make money, and the generals who have sold out their boys, their men and women who are in their brass, who go on to serve and make money in the defense contracting agency, the military brass, the veterans who are on the ground, the people who know what it's like to be denied service by the VA, who are going through what the effects are of the United States of America doing these wars and then not paying attention or caring about the people who served in those wars. Those people who are directly facing the brunt of the government right now and knowing what it's like to be a veteran who served your country and to come back only to find that nobody knows what you went through and isn't going to help you. Those people support this legislation, and they don't want the forever wars. They don't want Orwell's Forever War where we just continue to find a new enemy. And for me, this is personal legislation. It's not going to immediately solve the United States Congress's lack of courage issue, but it does, for what we can do here in the New Hampshire legislature, take the first step forward in New Hampshire to say, this is how we can get it done. And to your point, Representative Siebert, about a resolution, as you know, Mr. Chair, and members who have served here for a long time, House resolutions go into the congressional trash bin. They don't have any power. They don't have any weight. And if we want this legislation to have power and weight in our congressional delegation, seeing that the state of New Hampshire is genuinely looking at the fact that they haven't declared war or debated these issues for 82 years, then we should pass this legislation. And one of the last points I would make about the fiscal note for the freshmen in the room and others who have served not as long is the fiscal note is not sacrosanct. It is not, sometimes agencies and organizations, when they are against a particular piece of legislation, will exaggerate or overblow a particular fiscal note in the aim of being against this legislation. And sometimes it's the job of the legislature to say, I respect your agency, I respect your job here, but we are the legislature and we know that this is an important issue and we know that we need to move forward on this issue. The other states that have moved forward have had no issue with federal funding or threats of federal funding and have faced those threats when being proposed in committee. So I would see this as, given the fact that the United States of America has shirked its responsibility, its constitutional responsibility for the last 82 years to declare war, that it's time for the states to start taking up its mantle and urging and pushing the United States Congress to do that by withholding our troops if they're not going to take the time to declare and deliberate war. But I would agree, if they did, then those troops would be ready and able to do that work if they were declaring war and out there. I'm happy to take any questions, and I thank you all for your opportunity to speak here today.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Mandelbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So our colleague, Congressman Mannion, mentioned that New Hampshire would be the first state to pass such a bill. But from your testimony, it sounds like there are other states who have passed bills like this. Could you just provide a bit of clarification?
I was under the impression that Wyoming passed the bill.
They passed the upper chamber in Idaho and
So the
Okay.
upper chamber had passed the bill with no threats or problems in that instance.
All right.
Thank you for the
Thank
correction.
you.
Other questions? Go ahead, Representative Seibert.
No, I just thought I had a little bit of a clarification on that when I looked it up. The upper chamber, that's similar to like how it passed our house initially. Am I correct on that? And then was tabled in the Senate the last time around when we had this bill?
You are correct.
That would be a similar comparison. So it has not fully passed in any state.
As I just said to Representative Mandelbaum, thank you for correcting
Okay.
me. And
I just wanted to
it did
clarify.
pass in Wyoming and Arizona. As I just said to Representative Mandelbaum, who asked the same question, that it passed the state Senate in both of those states.
Okay, no, but I want to clarify. Was it signed into law by the governor?
I just answered your question.
Right.
Okay,
What we've heard a couple times is that two other states' senates have passed it, but their houses did not. In this state, our House passed it last term, but our Senate did not. So no state, this measure, this type of measure has not survived both houses to get to any governor's desk, at least not yet. Other questions? Or, yes, Representative Foss.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, since it's never been signed into law, you have no way of knowing whether or not these financial penalties would actually come to pass. Is that correct?
Well, they have no way of knowing that these financial penalties, I mean, from your perspective and the way that you're asking that question, they have no way of knowing that these financial penalties would be imposed. In fact, the opposite. We know that the incoming Defense Secretary has explicitly stated he supports this type of legislation and would not withhold funds. And as I said in my testimony, sometimes fiscal notes are wrong and state agencies don't always know what federal government is going to do. And sometimes it's used as a scare tactic to keep people from supporting legislation, which is quite common sense. That's my testimony.
Follow-up?
But just to clarify again, prospective Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth also said that women shouldn't serve in combat and then walked that back. So are you saying that we should just assume that what he said before he got confirmed on Fox News is what's actually going to happen?
I think you're asking a question from a political lens that I'm not going to answer because it's frivolous and not to the point of the legislation that we're discussing here today.
Representative Gagny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Wheeler. Good to see you again.
Always good to see you.
First of all, just one comment. I don't think the federal government will ever get rid of the National Guard because they're going to need us. It's number one. Number two, I know you're a young guy, but I was 14 in 1958 when the outgoing President Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex. Could you speak on that?
I could, Representative Gagny. You and I didn't even coordinate this. That's beautiful. But I forgot to. What I did forget in my testimony.
Excuse me, Representative. I want to get into this. I want to make sure our focus is on the measure at hand, and I think it could be I think I get Representative Gagny's point.
It's
about,
a quick.
Sure. So
quick
let's go ahead and develop
And
that.
I think what Representative Gagny was saying is absolutely pertinent to what we were talking about here. And what President Eisenhower said in 1952 in his farewell address to the American public, this is a piece to that, one paragraph of that address, which I urge this committee to go read. It is pertinent in more than one way to what this country is facing right now. He said, quote, "This conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist." And what he was discussing there is that reality that we have seen over the last 82 years, where a Congress which has a constitutional duty as outlined 248 years ago in our founding documents, have shirked that duty to defense contracting agencies, which have gone about and proposed illegal wars that have killed millions of people and left our service members and industries feeling like this country doesn't work for them anymore.
Other questions? Representative Seibert.
So we have multiple pretty large contracts with companies here that reside in the state of New Hampshire. So we're going to be stopping Sig Sauer from their contract currently to create the new machine guns and manufacture the new machine guns for the military industrial complex.
Representative Seibert, that doesn't pertain to the legislation that we have before us here.
Okay, I think
just talking about that.
my concern from my previous comment is that we're drifting a little bit into some esoteric areas, which I understand the connection that you made, and I let you finish reading from President Eisenhower's farewell address, which was in January of 1961, to be clear. But I want to not get redundant or repetitive, and we're getting there, and I want to move on to other speakers. But is there any other question for the representative directly related to the measure at hand? And saying none, thank you, Representative
Very
Wheeler.
much, Mr. Chair, for your time.
And Representative Clayton Wood from Pittsfield is in the House.